found out online that you also seemed less than impressed with Dave Hollis, and then also Rachel Hollis. And so I feel like you and I have tracked some of the same people that we're less than impressed with. And so I guess I want to learn about from your perspective, because it seems like you have like your niche has been to focus on these sort of pseudo gurus.
Yeah.
And to sort of dismantle what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
So how did that, because you haven't been on YouTube that long, have you?
No, I started...
Like just for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, a year and a half ago, I think. Well, this channel specifically. I've had other channels where I've done tutorial videos and more work-related things, because I'm in the video production space professionally. So I've tried several times to, let me try YouTube and do something, and it never stuck because I wasn't really interested for a long period of time. So I did start with a little bit of knowledge of like the back end and how to shoot videos and that sort of thing. But I started a year and a half ago really out of, two reasons. I started covering medical scams, or what I found to be medical scams, on TikTok, because there was a lot of people coming up on my feed that were asking for money. And then if you dug a little deeper, these people have been, like, it's a cycle. Like, every 6 months, this creator would come out and say, I'm dying tomorrow. And I started to pick up on some of the trends. And if you're familiar with TikTok, what you're interested in, it'll feed you more of it. So I started to find this whole world of people who... I can't confirm it or deny it, and I make sure that's clear in my videos. But the first couple videos I did were kind of breaking down some of these accounts and like looking at their claims and looking at the timeline. And I did that because I have a person in real life that I thought was sort of doing something like that. And I didn't feel like I could confront them because it was like a friend of a friend. So this was sort of my way of getting my aggression out or getting my frustration out, and in a way that I knew how, which was video production. So that's how it sort of started. And then the Rachel Hollis stuff came when she did Toiletgate. I was like, oh, this is sort of exposing that. And I did a video and it did well, and I enjoyed making it. And I was like, I wonder if there's more to do. And then it just snowballed out of control, basically.
Yeah. So how do you, what do you just, are you just on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and then you just notice people? So,
yeah.
How do you know who all these people are?
Like the gurus, you mean?
Yeah, because I follow you on Instagram, and you are prolific in the number of people that you have identified that are frauds on the internet. Yes.
Well, I think once you find one, you find them all, especially in the professional guru space. They all hang out together, and not really as friends, but hang out in sort of like not the literal sense, but they go on each other's podcasts. They talk to each other through, their social media. And once you see one and you start to go to the events or even look at the events and look at the posters and who's speaking, you'll see the same faces, the same names over and over again. So I'll go follow them. And then I think the algorithm starts to deliver me more stuff in that vein. So, sometimes I feel badly because, something I find to be goofy or a little bit over the top with sales tactics or, spirituality stuff, it might be someone's true beliefs, and I sort of try to respect that. But at the same time, it's like if someone doesn't call it out, I think it could get out of control in the sense of people think like this is okay. It's for someone to make a claim like, join my mastermind for $10,000 and I'll heal your trauma. Yeah. Like that's the stuff that I find just completely abhorrent and want to call out. So I try to share on Instagram just when I see something that I disagree with, some part of it. And then the YouTube is definitely the more of like the longer breakdown, the more in-depth stuff.
Have you always been, I'm trying to know what the right word is, but there is there's a personal agency to your style of handling. Like when you think about the person who's the person who says I've got some physical ailment and take care of me, like there's an action-oriented side of you that it seems like you're going to do something about it. Are you that way like elsewhere in your, like same thing, you hear Rachel Hollis, Toiletgate, and you go like she needs to be held accountable. I mean, you kind of are holding them accountable.
Sure. I didn't always used to be like that. That's kind of a new thing. And honestly, through going to therapy has helped me kind of be that way more, because I spent a lot of time stewing privately over things, like just pissed and mad and upset and not knowing what to do with that frustration when I would see people. And I guess it's like getting away with it is like the way I see it. Like, you're getting away with this. And I come from a journalism background as well. So I started in TV news and I worked at newspaper. So that type of like, let's expose, let's dig deeper into this has kind of been a part of my life. But when I was in the professional, journalism space, I covered positivity stories. I was 100% like a positive, feel good, fluffy reporter. So it's funny now that I've ended up on this side of things when I'm out of the business and doing more of like the negative stuff, because when people knew me professionally, they knew me as like, oh, the positive girl, so it's so different than I am now.
Yeah. I would imagine, but you have been super successful doing. Has there been any pushback? Like, has anybody reached out to you that you've commented on?
Everyone, well, the people in the beginning, the medical scam ones, they have a big presence on TikTok. They might have 100,000 followers there, but that's it. They don't have any other social media presence that's as large. So almost every one of them has messaged me privately and said, I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to call the police on you, and nothing's ever happened. So because I stick by what I said, I feel like I'm pretty careful about, allegedly, I don't know, here's where I'm getting this information from. So, if anyone wants to take out a lawsuit against me, go for it. We'll see what happens. I don't want that to happen, obviously, but I'm pretty confident that I don't just make claims that I can't back up with like information that I found on a public forum. But no one's, Rachel Hollis has blocked me on Instagram. Dave Hollis has blocked me on Instagram. And that's it. And everyone else is...
Dave Hollis has blocked me on Instagram.
He does. He's like notorious for that, so...
But I haven't done anything. I think I said like... I didn't... I don't know. I didn't say anything inappropriate. I think
Neither
I said,
did
like,
I don't think.
Yeah.
He blocked me because, well, I guess like it's your interpretation of what's right or wrong, but he had a picture of his daughter, and it was like a cute picture of her rollerblading or roller skating, and then he had a poll, and it was like, what meme should I turn this into? And so I wrote to him and I said, on that post, and I said, why don't you just spend time with your daughter? And then he blocked me.
Oh, that wasn't bad at all.
I mean, right? That's why I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm not going to feel too bad about that one.
I'm trying to think of what I don't know what I said to him. It wasn't that clever, but it was something like, will you knock it off? So who's the worst? Do you have of all these, what's the channel or you have a podcast with Camilla called
Cringe Fluencers,
right?
Yeah.
Which is fun, which is a lot of fun.
It is fun. It's nice to talk to someone else.
Yeah. So of all the people that you have looked at, who's the worst, do you think?
I mean, it depends on most dangerous probably is Teal Swan.
I have some problems with Teal Swan.
Yeah, because I think she causes real world issues, and because of her subject matter and her teachings, I mean, how can it not be super dangerous and problematic? But I tend to think Dave and Heidi are sort of less interesting. They're trying to be relevant, but they're almost not. And I think Rachel... I mean, Rachel's my most interesting. I always think of them as characters. Like, she's the most interesting character because she's a deep person, and she found herself finding this success sort of early in her life, and now she's got to figure out the longevity of it all. And so, following her is the most interesting, but she's not necessarily the most dangerous. I think the answer is the worst one is Teal Swan. Probably by far. And then there's one person named Natasha Grano that we covered on.
I don't know who that.
It's funny because she's sort of unknown, but she has 10 million Instagram followers, and she's.
Oh my God!
I know, but apparently it's all bullshit. So, but she's starting to go on stages and do the whole like, I was homeless and now I'm a millionaire story. And so she's, slowly growing her following. She's kind of like one of the most obvious ones that I watch her stuff. I'm like, okay, this is not even realistic at all. And the fact that she's got more Instagram followers than Tony Robbins, she's got more than like Gary Vee, and she's expecting people to believe this. But I mean, I guess people do. So that's another one that comes to mind.
I would never have thought about them being fake followers, but you could totally do that.
Yeah, well, her husband runs a company that gets you fake press, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So can you identify what it is about, like, so I know, like, I've seen you, like, talking, like, for example, Gary Vee you just mentioned, who you've not been super happy with, right? You said things about Gary Vee, who I would have thought, like, I wouldn't put him in the fake guru category, but you can convince me. But you have, like, a Gary Vee, and then, like, a Jay Shetty, who I would have thought, I don't know that much about, but I would have thought, not a fake guy. Like for me, I sort of haven't. This is not universal, but
sure.
For the most part, like, I haven't thought about them being like they're being ill intent. I just think about, like, Dave Hollis seems like I feel this poor guy has lost his identity. Like, my last video that I did about him, where I was trying to talk about, like, the psychological mindset that he's in, and what, like, I want to rub his shoulders. I feel bad. I feel like the guy is really distressed.
Yeah.
And then there's people, like, that I think are malicious, like I don't know what the guy's name is, but the guy that used to have, what's his name? Ty Lopez.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, guys that I'm like, Jesus, dude, like, it's so made up that I can't even, you know what I mean? Like, and those are the people that I think are the worst. So like, talking about, like, a Gary Vee or someone like that, what is it about his stance that you don't like?
Well, it's funny because I was a Gary Vee fan in the beginning, and I saw him in person, listened to one of his speeches when he was in Orlando, and
you were like a real fan.
Oh yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid. I read Rachel Hollis unironically back, in 2018. I have made a huge change in my life and in my interests.
Okay, I want to hear. Can you go? I want to hear about that change, but keep going.
Yeah, it's quite 180. But I earnestly was interested in Tony Robbins as well, back not that long ago, really, when you look at it. But I think because I saw people, and I found a community of people locally that also liked the Gary Vees and the Tony Robbins, and I saw the path that we had been on. I think some time also helped. So let's say 5 years, I was kind of listening to Gary Vee podcasts and trying to do something. And then at the 5th year, I'm like, I'm not getting any closer to anything that I want to do in my life. And I'm following this advice very closely. And same thing with people who I was, in community with, as they say, that have businesses and are trying to grow. And they were following the advice too, and not getting any farther, and also being miserable at the same time. And I think seeing that in real life, like, there's a guy that I know that runs, like, a t-shirt company, and he's so determined to make this like a multi-million-dollar company, and he's been doing it for like 10 years, listening to and hustling, striving, and trying to just, like, not seeing his kids and all those things to make this work, and it's not happening. And he listens to Gary Vee that says, you need to be patient. You need to, keep grinding, don't sleep, message 1 million people. And it's just, at a certain point, it's like, it's not going to work, and you feel guilty then about pivoting away from the content. And with Gary, I feel like he's gone so off the deep end. He started off sort of relatable, because I used to watch him when he would go to the garage sales and make flips and whatever. And I was kind of, like, that's cool. That's somebody that's not telling me, like, a Grant Cardone's another one that's sort of like on the spectrum of he's a faker guru, trying to steal your money immediately. But he's not. Gary was never on private jets in the same way that I saw like a Grant Cardone doing that. So I sort of respected it. Like, Grant's advice is go and buy a duplex or a quadplex, as if that's just like everybody can just go and buy a 4, unit apartment building. But I thought Gary's advice was, okay, start small, flips a couple things, and then start to grow your capital. However, okay, I still like that advice. I think that's good. I just think he's gotten so far away from that into like how he's the best entrepreneur ever. He's so into himself. He just wants to show how he's like so kind and so caring. And he also says some things that I find offensive when he's talking about, oh, you think you have it rough when you're poor? Oh, just hear what I have to, I have to hear from people who are trust fund babies that never feel like they really, can get out of their parents' shadow. It's like, you think being homeless and being in your parents' shadow is like comparable trauma? I just don't find that to be true. So I think after time, I just realized like, it's just not for me anymore. I just, I don't identify with it. And as soon as I sort of took my foot off of that, like, listen to guru advice, my business improved tremendously. So I don't know. I think it was almost holding me back in a way.
What'd you do differently? Can you pinpoint?
Well, I think I was just so chasing the next client. Like, I have to build up my roster and, like, DM 100 people. And I did. I've done all of that. I've done all the advice where it's like, DM 100 people and ask them for, if they want to buy something or they want to take your course or whatever. And, I've done all that. And it just was, like, a never-ending revolving door of clients. It's like, let me just focus on, get better at what I'm doing, and then deal with the 5 people that, are going to hire me and do those well. And then slowly grow. I just kept trying to grow like so fast and so like, oh, I'm just going to be aggressive and it never, it's like I just needed to like take a step back and go, what am I actually here for? What am I doing? What do I want to do? Yeah. And that was much better than like, I don't know. People always say like, don't give up. It's like, you need to give up a little bit. Give up on, okay, this is going to be a multi-million-dollar business, and just see what it is, and then you can, make changes along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so in that, I think I agree with you. I don't know. I agree with you about, as far as what you're doing, it seems like, is when you feel like someone is going to harm, when you felt the advice that Gary was giving was hurtful, making you feel bad about yourself, making your friends feel bad about themselves. And I do agree. He is intense, and I think for some people that's inspiring, but not if it's to the point that the wheels are falling off and you keep feeling like you have to push it, Yeah,
and it's like, something he'll say, like the patience thing, I agree, there's some patience needed for anything. You need to let it grow, but you got to also change it up a little bit. If it hasn't worked for the first 7 years, it probably is not going to work for the next 7. Why don't you try something else? And he's like, my friend's like, no, I got to just stick with this. It's like, why? I don't know. Yeah. And his whole thing too is like, Gary will tell this story that I sort of find to be sort of a sob story, I guess. Like, oh, like I grew my dad's just tiny liquor store business in New Jersey. And then he'll throw in, that was $3 million in revenue. It's like, that's a pretty big company to start with. If like my parents had a $3 million, resort or something, I think I would be on the top tier of, life options as opposed to and he got lucky too. I hate to say that because people hate to hear it, but he was starting his wine library TV YouTube channel in like 2007 when YouTube just started. The competition wasn't there yet. He was using Google AdWords right when that was starting. Yes, he's smart. He did it. He got in and he believed in it, and that is something to be proud of. However, that doesn't mean that lightning's going to strike twice and now he's a genius and he knows everything from now moving forward, because he invests a lot in startups that fail. You won't hear about them. You only hear that he invested in Uber. It's like, okay, well, what about those other ones? But that's business, so I get it. But, people like to think of, oh, he's like a savant of business. It's like, I don't know about that.
Right. So go back to that. So what switched for you when you were bought into the Rachel Hollis's and the Gary V's? What happened where you were like, I'm not doing this anymore? How did you make that shift?
I wish it was more of a positive story, but I sort of had like a mental breakdown, basically. And a lot of it was leading up to, I needed to be in therapy. I needed to be in therapy years ago. I wasn't. And I was sort of knowing something was wrong. Like I felt always just kind of untethered, I guess. Like I just was kind of bouncing around and trying to find my purpose and trying to find my passion and trying to be stable. And it took a while to, figure out like, okay, maybe I should seek help in that department. But I really was attracted to working on that on my own. And so I did that by listening to Gary Vee, listening to Tony, listening to Rachel, listening to Marie Forleo, all of them. I read a ton of books from all these gurus, thinking that I was going to be one step closer to figuring out what was my problem, I guess. And then I started to go, I talked about this on my channel before, but I saw a life coach. Don't recommend moving forward. I've learned my lesson there. But at the time, I think just having somebody to talk to got me close enough to feeling like, okay, I'm starting to recognize what my issues are. And then when I sort of had the breakdown, and I had a breakdown in the sense of I confronted a family member, I confronted my mom about something in my childhood, and we just had like a falling out essentially. And I was sort of left with like, okay, now the big thing has happened. What do I do? The books weren't helping anymore. The life coach wasn't helping anymore. And I still felt totally lost and on my own. And I was like, all right, I got to get into therapy. And as soon as I got into therapy, and I've been there for two and a half years, and I go twice a week, and I'm still learning and, kind of, I don't like the term healing. I'm not healing myself, but I feel like I'm getting closer to kind of feeling more stable and able to do these things on my own and figure out what the heck do I want to do in my life without, having to read 25 self-help books a week just to feel like I'm trying, So basically, once I got into therapy, I never looked back at a self-help book again. I almost am repulsed by them in some ways.
I don't think it's not that rare of a story. I mean, like the part about you confronting your mom, I think happens a lot for people where they think I don't know did your mom apologize? Did you get what you want, what you thought you wanted from her?
No, never. I haven't seen her since. I was like 2.5 years ago. So we talk a little here and there, but yeah, basically.
It wasn't resolved.
No.
It is amazing how many people that I have worked with who want that moment. They go back, they confront their parents, and their parents even apologize. And it means nothing to them. Like they think you think you're going to go there,
the moment.
And you're going to get like this big this weighs off my chest. But then what happened? I mean, I don't think I've had anybody that I've worked with where they had the apology from their parent and they go, "Oh, I feel better now." Like at the end of the day, it does always come back to you having to figure out for you how are you going to move forward. You know what I mean? And I think if I'm hearing this story right for you, like all of these self-help gurus are like trying to give you the answer. Yeah. And you've sort of been like, no, I'll figure out. And that's the difference between like a life coach, by the way, even executive coach, like what I do, like, and all these gurus where it's in coaching or gurus, it's like we're trying to deliver we're trying to improve performance versus therapy is about the client figuring out like who do they want to be, what do they want to do, how do they, it's much more directed by the client is the guide versus oftentimes in coaching, there's somebody else telling you what to do.
Yeah, and I feel like looking back, I might have been pushed a little bit into the confrontation because of that. It was like, oh, you want to make a better relationship with your mom? Let's do it. Let's confront her immediately. And now knowing like what my therapist would say, it's like it has nothing to do with her necessarily. It's about my own perception of what happened and what I need to do and how I want the relationship to go. So I didn't know that. I had a couple sessions of therapy when I was in college I was with a psychiatrist, so it wasn't even a therapist. It was just to get, anxiety medication because I was stressed in school and the typical, story. And then as a kid, I had a couple, with a child psychologist. But other than that, I didn't know there was any schooling difference between a life coach and a therapist. And that's my own ignorance that I will never, let anyone not hear about again. But, I don't know. It all sort of worked out well for me, which I am grateful for, but it could have not. And that's the part where I try to share my story with people about life coaching and about, getting into therapy and about just listening to gurus, because I was going down a path where I was feeling like I'm doing so much work on myself and it's becoming fruitless, if not even making me worse. Because now I have this person did it. Well, this person did it. And I'm just this loser and they've had a worse life than me. Oh my gosh. And then it's like the spiral out of control. So it took me having my own clarity to realize I never had the $3 million liquor store to start with. And I just need to realize that that's my place and it's okay. And that, I'm starting from here and some people start from there. And that's sort of where I found interest too in digging through the real background to almost prove to myself what they're saying is not always true. And for the reason of selling more books.
Right. Yeah. How are you feeling about YouTube now? I mean, are you as active on Instagram as you are on YouTube, or is YouTube the main focus for you?
I think YouTube's my main focus, just because, it's where, Instagram is just sort of to talk to people and get messages. I don't make any money from Instagram, but YouTube, it does provide monetary value for me. So I try to have a schedule, and I'm trying to figure out the business side of YouTube. With, AdSense and memberships and Patreon and all that stuff. That's sort of new. I've never really, even when I did YouTube before, I never got to that point. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make it sustainable, because it is a part-time thing right now. I've tried a couple times to make it more full-time, but I have clients and work and stuff. So now it's sort of 50-50. But I really love YouTube. I would love to make it even more of my life if I could make it sustainable monetarily. That's the ideal, is that you transition all the way over in full-time YouTube. Yeah, totally. So I would love that.
So you must be feeling good about, I guess I'm wondering, do you see your trajectory, from the outside, if I look at your channel and the different things that you're doing, it looks like you've been exceptionally successful on
Thank
YouTube.
You.
Very fast. Do you not have that, do you feel that, you're talking about, I wish I had the 3 million. Well, you haven't had the 3 million, but
sure.
I wonder if you compare your growth trajectory to Gary's back when he started, I would imagine you're probably on a sharper curve than he was.
That's nice. Thank you so much.
That may not be true, but do you know what I'm saying? Do you view it that way, or do you still feel like you're?
It's really tough for me to view it that way. I view it. And this is something I do in my whole life, so it's probably that. But I find that, it's gone well so far, but you can never depend on that. And I think, too, with working in the news business, in local news especially, things can be going well one week, and then all of a sudden there's layoffs and there's, a company buyout, and you can never feel comfortable. So I feel like I still am very much this video did good, but I don't know about the next one. I got to make the next one better, and hopefully, fingers crossed. And it does happen too, where channels that I follow, they'll have 6 hits in a row, and then one just flops, and then they have 3 recovery videos, and they got to get back on track. So it's not impossible for that to happen on YouTube. So I just try to go into it every video, I guess, with an, fingers crossed mentality. But so far, in the year and a half I've been doing it, it's been growing, and people seem to really like the content. I do get nervous sometimes about, is it too negative? Does it offend people too much? And I never want to do that. There's a certain threshold of offense that I'm willing to go. And I never want to cross that. So I'm always trying to keep myself in check. Is that joke too far? Is that, insult that I've made, is that fair or is that crossing some sort of line that I should kind of recognize? So, I try to always keep that in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you done? Are there some where you look back and you go, "Oh yeah, I crossed the line on that one"?
Yeah, I don't know any specific examples, but definitely. I mean, even in my latest video that I did about Gabby Bernstein, who's another guru spirituality person, I made a joke about because Gabby, one of her things is that she hears voices a lot, and they tell her what to do, and they tell her what to say, and they tell her what to write down on her books. And so I said, and she's got a name. She says the spirit guide that talks to her is named Peter. So I made a joke that, obviously I still think it's funny as I'm laughing, but I think it was a little too far. I made a joke that I said, if I was if I told my therapist that a guy named Peter was telling me what to say on these videos, I think I'd be hosting them from inside a facility. And a couple people were like, that's not really good. It's not how things work and your mental health. I'm like, okay, you're right. So something like that. I did it and I knew it was a little risque. I got the feedback and I was like, okay, people thought I was a little far, so I'll kind of take a step back. But at the same time, it's like, I've dealt with, my dad has bipolar disorder. So I've been inside mental health facilities and, been witness to a lot of that. So I feel like if anyone can say something like that, I should be probably on the list, just because I've experienced it for many years. But I also don't want to be, like I said, I don't want to be offensive for no reason. So
I have so many questions. So the first question is, how do you respond to it? So someone says, I'm offended by that. Then what do you do? Do you write back and say
sometimes.
sorry, or
sometimes? And
you will say sorry in the comment back?
Once in a while, yeah. If I find it to be like a good piece of critique, I'll try to say, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that, or this part I agree with, this part I don't. I'll next time I'll do better.
Yeah.
I really try, and I hope it doesn't come off as like me like being a try-hard at it, but I really do try to take the criticism and hear it and either decide in that moment, like, no, I'm not agreeing with this, or yes, I am agreeing with this, and I'm going to make sure the next time is better in some way. Because I feel like in this type of content that I'm making, I'm very, very hard on people. I don't really give people a break. So, if I'm not giving people a break because they can't take critique and criticism, I'm not going to go around and do the same thing to myself and go, well, don't tell me what to do. I can only tell you what to do. So I try to practice what I preach as much as possible. And, sometimes they're like, oh, my God, you support vaccines? How horrendous. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to, like, change my, beliefs on that for a comment. Right. But someone who has good faith and makes a comment, I try to take it and use it if I can, if possible.
Yeah. I don't comment back usually unless I find something super, like if it's a good feedback, I'll say every once in a while I'll say like, okay, good feedback, I'll do that different, or you're right. But that's usually about like, hey, your audio sucks, or you whatever, you talk too much, or stop moving your hand. Like one I get is you move your hands too much, and I'm like, I don't know how to not talk and use my hand anyway.
Yeah, that stuff. It's like people are just
Yeah, every once in a while when someone says something that's like what I think is so stupid, I have a hard time not
responding,
like, and being like passive aggressively saying like you're really dumb. That is what I want to. Like I find myself very reactive. And I know that that's not the right
way to be.
But I have a hard time.
Sometimes I'll screenshot it and put it on Instagram and be like, yeah, this is a good comment. And I don't know. Sometimes it makes me feel better just to like sort of laugh about it, I guess, in some form. And maybe that's not the right way to do it either, but like the other day someone said, and it was a live stream, so, they were just wrong about what type of video it was, but they're like, it seems like you're not editing the dead air because you just want to hear people, you just want to sing to us or something. Because I usually will, if I'm like trying to find my way, I'm like, okay, I'm getting my thing up and I'm gonna get my screen, and the person I guess thought I was trying to like show that I got the chops or something. I don't know. And I was like, okay, so I just shared it on my Instagram, like, this is my plan all along. So I don't know. I guess it's like I think I'm a big believer in free speech, and I don't. Well, I feel like people, when they say, like, I believe in free speech, people are like, oh, God, you know, like, what are you going to say? Like, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And it's like, I just think sometimes people in comments, maybe that's their way of, like, being honest in the world. Because I've done a lot of, like, in-person talks and things through the years, and I feel like there's no feedback. It's blank faces and nothing. It's like, do you have a question? No one says anything. And I find that to be like, well, I can never get better. I don't know if I'm doing well, if I need to, you know, completely rework this. And at least people can be honest in the comments, whether it's rude or whatever. I do find that there's value in that. It's like at least people are being able to be their true, authentic selves with each other. And so, you know, I find it valuable. So if my belief is that I find it valuable, I can't hate on it too much, and I try to keep that in mind.
And my second question is, so I agree with that, by the way. I don't think I've ever deleted a comment.
Yeah, I won't either.
Yeah, I won't delete them, and I will. My flaw is that I'll go back after them. I will say, I was just making me think, like, the worst thing I ever did was when I first started. Like, you create a video, and my very first video was on Rachel Hollis.
Oh.
And I had no. I had never thought about doing any kind of YouTube anything. But during COVID, I was bored, and I was like, oh, well, I should learn something every month. That was like what I was trying. So I was trying to learn how to do. Initially, it was like edit pictures, and then it was I should edit a video, and then it was I'm going to try and see if I can create like stories for my family. That was like what I was originally thinking about. And then Rachel Hollis and Dave Hollis, my wife, really liked Rachel Hollis.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it wasn't like really part of my world. I thought the books were fine. I didn't really sort of register for me that maybe they weren't. I thought they were fine. She really liked them, and then they got divorced after they had been like in March, being like, "We're so in love, we have dates in the driveway, and this is how you do COVID." And like, oh, we're getting thanks for the $1,700 for the last workshop, and we're getting divorced. So I did a reaction video, and it did really well. Like for like a no-name YouTuber, and then I put my next video out, and like it's like no one looked at it because it wasn't on Rachel Hollis, and so I was like, trying, what the hell? Like my expectation was that my first Rachel Hollis video got like 30,000 views.
Oh wow!
And so when I had no like,
following,
just like dumb luck, and then I'm like, well, and then my next video got like 200 views.
Yeah.
And I was like, what gives? So I was like trying to figure out. I was like, oh, it must be that my thumbnails suck. So then, do you know who Brian Callen is? He's a comedian. And he, like 2 years ago, got in trouble for some kind of, like 4 women claimed that he had sexually assaulted them.
Oh.
Like groped him in a I think one of them was groped him in a silver buckle, like that department store. One, he had been too aggressive when they were together or whatever, things like that. And I said, my point in my video was like, look, sexual assault is like we talk about sexual assault like it's always the guy that's like hiding behind your car in the parking garage, and like that's what we think about as sexual assault or rape. But like really, 99% of the time, it's some guy that thinks that he is being I'm seducing you, and it goes too far, and I don't know how to stop, and I think that what I'm doing is coercing you, but I think I'm seducing you, and I think that line, and like that should be like, to me, that should be the discussion point, like in school, is how do you verbalize what you want, and hey, men, how do you be aware of like that? That's my point. Yeah. So I said my thumbnail was, why did he do it? And what I was trying to say is like, why, like, and my point was he did it because he thought he was he thought he was seducing them, and that's how it happened. And people were freaking. I mean, I've never got more hate. People wanted to dox me. They're gonna hunt me down. No. What's my address? I was like, I couldn't believe it. So I changed the thumbnail to like, how could it have happened, or something more vague. But that was the one time where I look, and I still look back and go like, I made some big assumptions about, I don't think he was ever charged with anything. It was just people on the internet had said. So anyway, that was
your faux pas.
My big, that was the worst one. That's the worst one that I've done.
Yeah, I think it's. Did you address it? Did you put any sort of like disclaimer on the next one or comment back or anything?
So my next video, well, on that one I turned the comments off.
Really?
It was overlooked.
Oh, no.
I turned. Oh my god! Because it was like that was the I for sure suppressed that.
It's funny.
I was like, this like video number 4, and I was like, oh my god, that whole, and it's amazing just the way the YouTube algorithm works. When the comments go off, they don't share your video anymore.
Yeah.
So that video, I never took the video down, but it's essentially like it gets no views now, and it was like overnight. I woke up and it had like 1,000 views, and I posted it like at midnight, and it was aggressive. So that's the one video that I turned the comments off, and then the next video, I said, like I started a clip being like, looks like the entire internet hates me, and I was like, here's what I meant.
Yeah.
And the next video was about what would I do if I were Brian Callen? How would I defend myself? How would I explain myself? I tried to
follow up.
But anyway,
well,
I tried to do a follow up.
Well, you learn, you live and you learn. I feel like as long as YouTube gives you the opportunity to keep trying and tweak it as you go, it's as long as you're not giving up, I think it's good to keep trying and figuring it out. Otherwise, you're not going to. So you might as well have that happen early, so that you can it
happened very early.
Yeah.
Wait, so I wanted to ask you. So when you do a joke like that, do you write? Like, how are you prepping for your videos? Are you like writing the joke ahead of time, or do you just go off the cuff?
I mean, so I do a lot of live streams. So a live stream, no, those are coming off the cuff. I don't write anything in advance. I barely even have an outline for a live stream if it's about Rachel Hollis, because I kind of know, which is so weird to say. Like, I've memorized so much with her, and sometimes I get it wrong with dates and things. But like, I kind of, because I've read all of her stuff now, and I'm like always listening to their podcasts, like they meaning Dave and Rachel, I can kind of.
You still listen to both their podcasts?
Yeah, less so Dave lately, because I can't even follow it. Like, I tried when he was kind of like, going off the deep end. I tried to really listen to his and what he's talking about, but I've just lost interest. Rachel, on the other hand, I'm still interested in. So I listen to pretty much anything that she posts. I'll listen to it, because I feel like I owe it to people who watch the streams. Like, I don't want to miss anything and lose the context, or get something wrong and say, oh, she does this and she never apologized, and she has, or she always does this with her children, and then like she says, oh, I'm never doing this again on a podcast, and I miss it. So I find it to be important, at least while I'm still kind of covering her on a fairly regular basis, to keep up with it and to really try to make sure that I know what's going on in her business and world. And it's funny because business and world, but like, it's really her life as well, because her life is her business. And that's a whole conversation too about, be your brand, how that's sort of backfired on a lot of people as of late, that, now they want privacy. And it's like, well, every minute of my children's lives is online, and I have all these video vlogs of me going through all these experiences, and now I just want to like live a normal life. And how do you go back and undo that damage? But that's, I find eventually I do want to start to have more videos and content related to like the higher level type of thoughts. Like, okay, Rachel Hollis is very like, we're like under a microscope, very closely dissecting every word she says. But eventually I do want to start to talk about like, okay, someone like her, someone in that position, what is that good for people? Should you become a inspirational speaker, or what types of things could you come up against if you want to do that? So we'll see in the future how that goes. Yeah,
that was one of my questions for you. Is that the truth? Like, are you going to I don't want to replace, maybe it's the wrong word, but do you want to have a role where you're sort of doing that in a way that you think is more authentic?
You mean like give advice to people? I don't know. I go back and forth, because like, yes, sort of. I mean, I do give advice, or what I think, is the antithesis of probably what, someone's saying. And usually it's go to therapy, find somebody in your life to talk to, as opposed to listen to what I have to say. And I make a conscious effort to at the end of the videos, and sometimes I wonder if it comes off as rude, but I always say, I don't love you and I don't know you at the end, because Rachel always says, I love you and I'm rooting for you. And I always think, like, you don't know any of the people listening to you. Like, you've never met any of us. Like, I listen to every single episode, and like she probably would hate me and hate my guts. So the fact that she's like, I love you, I'm like, it's a lie. So I try to remind people too, like, you know, I'm just one voice. I don't know you in real life, so what I'm saying may not apply at all, and that's probably the best advice I can give, is don't listen to me 100% of the time. And I don't know. I feel like I don't have a desire to be a motivational speaker at all. But I have a desire to push my message, which is, you know, these gurus aren't all-knowing. We shouldn't probably give them all this money. You shouldn't probably spend $1,000 plus going to a conference because you're probably going to get ripped off. So, you know, if that message gets out there more, that's what I'm more about, as opposed to I want to be the anti-Rachel Hollis motivational speaker, because that would have issues in itself. So,
Good. So you have your channel, you have Cringefluencers. Do you have anything else on YouTube?
Not that I promote. You know, I have stuff from like high school.
But you always wanted to be on YouTube then. Like, you've been doing it for years.
I wanted to be a news anchor. That was my goal in life. I was going to be a news reporter, and I had, you know, a lot of newsy type stuff that's out there. And I did have, I had a segment on the local news for a while in Orlando. And, you know, I was kind of on that path, but like I said, it was very positive. It was like, let's go to the local coffee shop and see what they're up to, you know, like very much like, you don't know my political beliefs watching that. You're never going to know if I had a bad day watching that. It was very much like the persona of me. And I thought, like, this is good. This is what I want. But then over time, I don't know, it just waned, and I'm like, I want to have opinions. I want to be able to talk about things. And I just felt more and more my professional life was so vastly different than what I was like at home. And I'm like, I don't want this anymore. And it worked out, too, that, like, the pandemic happened and, you know, the local news industry exploded. So it sort of took care of itself in my life. But YouTube was always sort of like a storage device almost for me. Like, I'm going to put it out there, but it's really just for me to like save it, and I don't have to keep it on a disc. Until like a year and a half ago, when I was kind of like, okay, this is for an audience. This is not just for me to have this be here for me to watch later. But yeah, that's it. Cringefluencers is once a week with Cam. And then my channel is sort of erratic because sometimes stuff happens and I go live 3 times in a week, and sometimes nothing happens. But I'm trying to work on videos that are pre-recorded in advance, like the Gabby video. Like, we were sort of, that question I sort of didn't answer fully. Like, if I was scripting something like that, like the Gabby video I just posted, that joke would be scripted in, and I would try to deliver it as naturally as possible.
Oh, I've not watched that video, but I will watch it.
Yeah.
So why the live streams? That seems stressful to me. I just did my very first live stream with my wife, and we had 1 viewer on a separate channel.
Nice.
And it's like there's so much going on. It's overwhelming to me. There's so much going on, and it just. So why do you like it better?
I don't know. I love it. I wish I could do all. I mean, I guess I could. I'm like, I wish I could if I wanted to. But you know. I don't know, live streams to me are so fun, and you get that instant feedback. And I haven't done a ton of live streams outside of Rachel Hollis on this channel, on Keya'S World. But, you know, sometimes there'll be 400 people watching and interacting and talking.
Wow.
And which is really fun and cool. And people are like giving me, you know, their opinions in real time, and I can kind of incorporate it into the show, and I can pull up comments. And the program we talked about, Ecamm, that I use, it's very easy to use and friendly, so I can kind of build these things in advance. So if I want to show a video of Rachel Hollis, and then I want to stop it and circle it, and like, you know, I could do it. Like, you could do basically anything that you want and make it really interactive. And the best part is, once it's done, so if I do a 3-hour live stream, that video is done. I shot it.
You're doing 3-hour live streams?
Oh, I do 4 hours sometimes. I did a 4-hour last week.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, and like the whole time there's like 400 people, which is, you know, insane. And then there's the element of people will gift you things during the show. They'll send you messages, and you know, you make money that way. And not that that's the goal when I do it, but the fact that people can participate, they don't have to like, you know, send me PayPal or something. They can just be in the show. They can be a part of the show. I don't know. I try to make it like a fun environment to be in. And yes, we're talking about these sort of serious topics at times, but it also, I have sound effects that I've cut from different live streams, different clips. So
my gosh, I have to watch your live stream and see what you got going on over there.
Yeah, like there's this one where Dave Hollis, so he's got his podcast, he's got a Shopify ad. And so this is a joke that might go too far, but he's got a Shopify ad, and he says, I love that sound. So I cut it together with a fart sound. And so sometimes I'll play that when someone like will gift me something, and it's just like, just to laugh about it, because I don't know, it's silly and it's stupid, but people like it, I like it, so it's kind of that like lowbrow humor, but it's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of a niche thing. Like you don't really get the jokes unless you understand sort of the 10 layers of all this guru world and what Dave said 10 months ago and what Rachel. But if you're in it, you feel very connected to it, and it's funny. So that's my goal.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you got 4 hours to kill.
What? Yeah, I did not know they're going for 4 hours. That is impressive.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate. I have to jump off here, so I really appreciate you sitting for the interview. Thank you so much. It was really good to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. And you heard that? Do you hear that sound?
No.
Okay, good. Sorry.
I just saw a dinosaur. Somebody just subscribed to you.
Yeah.
Or something?
So I have a thing where it will. That's how I get the gifts will pop up. So if someone subscribes or if someone sends me something, it'll pop up. But even when I'm not live, it'll still do that. So, sorry. Okay.
Oh no, that's nice. Like a little pick me up, right? Whenever that happens.
That's good. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yes, it's been great. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking with you.
You too.
Have a good rest.